One small act of kindness, a waitress helping a disabled boy zip his jacket, changed her life forever, proving that compassion can open doors no money ever could. On a chilly autumn morning, the little cafe on the corner was buzzing more than usual. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries filled the air, blending with the faint aroma of cinnamon from the muffins lined neatly on the counter. Emily moved quickly between tables, her apron slightly stained, but her smile bright. She balanced trays stacked with steaming drinks and plates of food. She had been working there for almost 3 years, and while it was exhausting, she liked the familiarity of the place. Most of her regular customers were friendly, but mornings like this were always hectic. She noticed the door open, and the familiar chime rang. But this time, a family walked in that seemed different from the usual crowd. The father, tall and sharply dressed in a tailored suit, carried himself with an air of authority. Beside him, a woman with a gentle smile tried to manage a small boy in a wheelchair. The boy, around 10 years old, fidgeted in his seat, shivering slightly as he tugged at his jacket, trying to zip it up. Emily felt a tug at her heart as she watched him struggle. Without thinking, she walked over, kneeling down to his level, and gently took the zipper between her fingers. "Here, let me help you," she said softly. The boy looked up at her with a mixture of surprise and relief. In a few moments, his jacket was zipped perfectly, and he let out a small laugh. Emily smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She didn't usually go out of her way to help every child, but something about him made her want to. Maybe it was the way he had tried so hard to do it on his own, or the little spark of independence in his eyes. The father had been watching from a few steps away. He didn't interrupt or make a scene. He simply observed quietly. There was something in the way Emily moved, patient yet gentle, that caught his attention. He wasn't used to seeing someone so selflessly help a child, especially without expecting anything in return. His son Liam was usually shy and hesitant around strangers, but Emily had managed to make him comfortable almost instantly. He felt a warmth he hadn't seen in people who interacted with Liam before. Emily stayed with Liam a few extra seconds, making sure he was comfortable. "There, all set," she said, stepping back. Liam nodded and smiled, a small but genuine smile, the kind that made Emily's chest feel lighter. She turned back to her work, juggling another tray of coffee and pastries. But she couldn't shake the feeling of having witnessed something meaningful. Even in such a small moment, as the family moved toward a table, Emily glanced at the father again. He gave her a small nod, almost imperceptible, but it carried weight. He wasn't someone who typically noticed small acts of kindness. He was used to people bowing or smiling out of obligation. But Emily's gesture had been real, unforced, and attentive. He couldn't help but feel a spark of respect and curiosity toward her. Throughout the morning, Emily moved quickly, refilling cups, taking orders, and smiling at customers. But she kept glancing at the family, observing the father's protective gaze toward his son and the mother's gentle attention. The way they communicated with Liam was tender but careful. Each small movement considered, like a dance of understanding built over years. Emily couldn't help but admire it. She had grown up in a less fortunate household where every day was a struggle. She often didn't encounter such polished patience and care. The cafe itself seemed almost alive that morning. The hum of conversation, the clatter of dishes, and the soft music playing in the background blended into a rhythm that Emily had become accustomed to. Yet, something about the presence of this family added a new layer of meaning to her day. She had spent so long serving tables, listening to complaints and smiles, but now she felt that her small act, sipping up a boy's jacket, had created a subtle connection. A connection she couldn't yet understand, but one that felt important. For the father, watching Emily kneel and patiently help his son was a rare moment of clarity. In his world, most people were transactional, polite, yes, but ultimately focused on themselves. This young woman, with her worn apron and quick hands, had shown a kindness he hadn't seen in a long time. He felt a quiet admiration for her, realizing that her character, not her appearance or background, made her stand out. It was a small gesture, yet it spoke volumes about who she was. Emily returned to the counter to prepare a tray of drinks, but her mind lingered on the family. She didn't know it yet, but this brief interaction, this simple act of helping Liam, had planted a seed of change. The father, observing her every move, was already beginning to see potential and integrity that went far beyond her role as a waitress. For Emily, it was just another morning, another moment of work and care. For him, it was the start of a story that could change both their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. As the morning unfolded, the cafe continued its lively rhythm. Emily moved with practiced efficiency, but there was a quiet satisfaction in her heart. Helping Liam had been instinctive, yet it gave her a sense of purpose that was rare in her day-to-day grind. Little did she know that her small, unnoticed act would soon ripple far beyond the walls of the cafe, creating a turning point that would mark the beginning of something extraordinary. The father watched as she interacted with other customers. Noticing the same attentiveness and warmth she had shown Liam, it wasn't just about zipping up a jacket. It was about her patience, empathy, and genuine care for others. Qualities that were increasingly rare in the world he inhabited. In that moment, he quietly promised himself that he would find a way to acknowledge her not with money, but with an opportunity that recognized who she truly was by the time the family left. Emily had returned to her work routine, unaware of the impression she had made. But the father lingered in thought, replaying the moment in his mind. Realizing that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could reveal the deepest truths about a person. And for Emily, the day continued as usual, but life had already begun to shift, in ways she could not yet see, all because she had stopped to help a boy zip up his jacket. Emily went through her day with the same rhythm she always had, serving tables, refilling coffee cups, and taking orders with a practiced smile. The cafe was busy, the morning rush blending into the lunchtime crowd. But her mind kept drifting back to the family she had helped earlier. She couldn't stop thinking about the boy, Liam, and the way he had smiled at her when she zipped up his jacket. It was such a small thing, yet it had made a real difference to him. She didn't realize it yet, but that tiny gesture had left a lasting impression on someone else as well. After her shift, Emily wiped down the last tables and began stacking chairs in preparation for the evening crowd. Her life outside the cafe was often a whirlwind of worry and responsibility. She lived in a small apartment with her younger brother, who had recently started school, and her mother, who had been sick and required constant attention. Money was always tight, and she often skipped meals just to make sure the bills were paid and her family had enough to eat. Even though she was tired, Emily never complained. She knew she had to keep moving, keep working, because no one else would. The Harrison family returned to the cafe several times over the next few days. Always at different times, always quietly observing. Emily noticed them, but she didn't think too much of it. They were just another set of customers, after all. She greeted them with her usual warmth, taking their orders and ensuring that Liam was comfortable. Each time she saw them, she found herself paying extra attention to the little details, making sure Liam's wheelchair was positioned just right, offering him a drink without him asking, and occasionally engaging him in conversation. She had a natural way of connecting with children, especially those who needed a bit of patience and understanding. Meanwhile, Mr. Harrison continued to observe Emily. He saw how she moved through the cafe with efficiency, yet without losing the personal touch. She remembered customers' names, asked about their days, and seemed to genuinely care about each person she served. It wasn't just her kindness toward Liam. It was how she treated everyone around her, regardless of their status or how busy she was. For him, it was unusual. In his world, people often acted out of self-interest, but Emily seemed different. He couldn't shake the thought that her character was remarkable, and he found himself wanting to know more about her. Emily, on the other hand, had her own struggles that she kept to herself. She had dreams beyond the cafe, dreams she rarely allowed herself to speak aloud. She wanted to start her own small bakery someday, a place where she could bake fresh bread and pastries and create a space for people to feel welcome and cared for. But those dreams seemed distant and almost impossible given her current responsibilities and financial situation. Every day was a balancing act between work, family obligations, and trying to find a moment to rest. She often felt invisible, like her hard work and kindness went unnoticed, except for the occasional smile from a customer or tip left on a table. Despite her exhaustion, Emily found a strange sense of satisfaction in her work. Helping Liam had reminded her why she did what she did. She liked making people feel comfortable, even if only for a moment. She liked seeing the small sparks of happiness in their faces, knowing she had contributed in some way. Yet deep down, she couldn't help but feel that there was something more waiting for her, a chance to prove that her life didn't have to be defined by struggle and survival alone. One afternoon, as Emily was serving lunch to the usual crowd, she noticed Mr. Harrison sitting alone at a corner table, observing her quietly. He was no longer just a passing customer. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her pause for a moment. She wondered why he kept coming back, why he seemed so interested in her actions. Was it her work ethic? Her kindness? Or was it simply curiosity? She couldn't tell, and she tried to push the thought aside, focusing instead on taking orders and ensuring the kitchen kept up with the demand. As days turned into weeks, their small, unspoken connection grew. Emily continued her routine, largely unaware of the subtle ways Mr. Harrison was noticing her. He would observe how she spoke to her coworkers with respect, how she handled stressful moments without losing composure, and how she treated her customers with genuine care. For him, it was becoming clear that she possessed qualities that money and privilege could not buy, qualities that were rare, authentic, and valuable. Meanwhile, Emily's personal life continued to challenge her. She was often tired, sometimes frustrated, but she refused to let her struggles define her. Even when bills piled up and her mother's health worsened, she remained determined to keep moving forward. She would take extra shifts at the cafe, pick up odd jobs, and sacrifice her own comfort just to make sure her family was taken care of. She rarely allowed herself moments of rest, but she found solace in small victories: a perfectly baked loaf, a customer's sincere thank you, or a child smiling at her across the room. During one particularly hectic afternoon, a customer accidentally spilled coffee near Liam's table. Emily rushed over immediately, helping him stay calm while cleaning up the mess. Mr. Harrison watched quietly, but inside he felt a growing admiration for her composure and quick thinking. He realized that her kindness was not limited to grand gestures. It was in the way she managed everyday challenges with patience and grace. Every small action reinforced the impression that she was someone special, someone who deserved recognition beyond the cafe walls. Emily, despite her heavy responsibilities and exhausting days, began to notice the subtle ways Mr. Harrison acknowledged her. Sometimes it was a nod, a brief smile, or simply lingering at her table for a moment longer than necessary. She didn't know what it meant, and at first she didn't allow herself to think too deeply about it. Life had taught her to focus on the present, on the tasks she could control, rather than pondering possibilities that might never come true. Yet something was shifting. Emily's routine, once so predictable and constrained, was slowly being touched by the presence of this family and the quiet attention of the father. It was as if the universe was hinting that her small acts of kindness, her dedication, and her dreams were being noticed, even if she didn't yet see it herself. She continued her work, helping Liam, serving other customers, and navigating her personal challenges, but there was a subtle sense of anticipation in her heart, a feeling that change, something meaningful, might be on the horizon. The cafe remained busy, the days blending into one another, but Emily's perspective began to shift. She realized that even in a world where she often felt invisible, her actions mattered. Helping a child, showing kindness, maintaining integrity, it was all part of who she was. The world, even in unexpected ways, was beginning to notice. For Mr. Harrison, each day reinforced the idea that Emily was extraordinary, someone whose life deserved opportunity and support. For Emily, life was still a struggle, but the small moments of connection and recognition gave her hope that perhaps one day her dreams could become reality. And so, the days passed, with Emily continuing her work at the cafe, balancing responsibility and dreams, kindness and survival, unaware that the man observing her was beginning to see her not just as a waitress, but as a person of incredible value and potential. This quiet, unfolding story was the beginning of a bond that would grow. connection that would eventually change the course of her life in ways she could never have imagined. Emily's life continued at its usual pace, moving between tables, balancing trays, handling the constant flow of customers in the busy cafe. She had grown used to the routine, but something about the Harrison family lingered in her mind. She noticed Mr. Harrison's presence more often now, the quiet, steady way he observed her as she worked. But she still didn't know why. She kept her focus on her job, helping her customers and making sure everything ran smoothly, all while carrying the weight of her personal responsibilities at home. One afternoon, after the lunch rush had finally slowed, Emily was wiping down the counter when she felt a presence behind her. Turning around, she saw Mr. Harrison standing there, a calm, almost serious expression on his face. Emily felt a mixture of surprise and nervousness. He wasn't one to approach the staff casually. "Emily," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" She nodded, unsure what to expect, and followed him to a quiet corner of the cafe. He asked her about her life, her family, and her work at the cafe. At first, Emily was hesitant to share much. She was used to keeping her personal struggles private, especially from strangers, even those who seemed kind. But there was something in Mr. Harrison's presence that made her feel safe, as if he genuinely wanted to understand her life, not judge it. Slowly, she opened up, telling him about her responsibilities at home. The long hours she worked to support her mother and younger brother, and her dream of one day owning her own small bakery. Mr. Harrison listened quietly, nodding and asking gentle questions. He was struck not just by the hardships she faced, but by the way she carried herself through them. She spoke with a quiet strength, a resilience that shone through every word. He realized that Emily was more than just a hard-working waitress. She was someone with talent, vision, and character. Someone who deserved a chance to grow beyond the constraints of her current life. As their conversation continued, Emily shared more about the little moments that mattered to her, helping a child feel comfortable, baking for neighbors when she had extra ingredients, and finding joy in small victories despite the challenges she faced. She explained how she had always dreamed of a life where she could turn her passion for baking into something tangible, a space that brought happiness to others while supporting her family. She admitted that the idea seemed impossible at times, that the demands of daily life often made her feel trapped in a cycle of work and worry. Mr. Harrison smiled, not in a condescending way, but with genuine admiration. He could see the spark in her eyes, the determination and kindness that set her apart. He realized that a small gesture like helping his son zip up his jacket was only the surface of who she truly was. Emily possessed qualities that could make a real difference in the world if she were given the right support and opportunity. He began to consider ways he could help, ways to give her a chance to grow, but he knew it would require trust and patience. For Emily, talking to Mr. Harrison was both exciting and intimidating. She had never been approached like this by someone so wealthy and influential. Part of her wanted to be cautious, fearing that it might be too good to be true, or that there might be hidden expectations. Yet, another part of her couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the chance she had been waiting for, the opportunity to change her life and achieve the dreams she had always carried quietly in her heart. Over the next few days, their conversations became more frequent. Mr. Harrison would occasionally stop by during his visits, asking about her day, her family, and her aspirations. Emily began to notice that he wasn't just asking out of curiosity, he genuinely cared about her progress and well-being. He offered advice, guidance, and encouragement, and slowly, Emily started to trust him. She realized that his interest in her life wasn't about control or obligation. It was about seeing someone with potential and wanting to help them succeed. Emily's perspective began to shift. She started thinking more seriously about her dreams, about the bakery she had always imagined. She realized that her hard work and dedication at the cafe were valuable skills that could be applied to something bigger. She began planning in small ways, saving money, learning new baking techniques, and experimenting with recipes whenever she could find a spare moment. She also began to notice the confidence growing within her, a quiet sense that she could achieve something meaningful if she remained committed and open to opportunity. Meanwhile, Mr. Harrison observed her growth with careful attention. He saw how she handled pressure, how she remained kind and patient even when her day was overwhelming, and how she maintained her integrity despite the challenges she faced. For him, it was a reminder that talent and character often exist in places society overlooks. He began to formulate a plan to help Emily move beyond her current circumstances, to provide her with the resources and guidance necessary to bring her dreams to life. One afternoon, as Emily was leaving her shift, Mr. Harrison stopped her and handed her a small notebook. "This is for your ideas," he said. "Write down your plans, your recipes, your goals. Keep track of everything. You never know which steps will take you to where you want to go." Emily accepted it, touched by the gesture. It wasn't just a notebook, it was a symbol of belief, of acknowledgement that someone saw her potential and wanted to invest in it. She promised herself she would use it to plan, dream, and take action, no matter how small the steps. Over time, Emily began to take small, calculated risks. She experimented with new recipes, offered to cater small events, and even started thinking about a small space where she could begin baking professionally. She continued to face obstacles. Money was always tight, and her family needed her, but the mentorship and encouragement from Mr. Harrison gave her a renewed sense of purpose. She started seeing herself not just as a waitress, but as someone capable of creating something meaningful, someone whose actions and dreams could have a lasting impact. The connection between Emily and Mr. Harrison deepened, but it was built on trust and respect, not obligation. He continued to watch, guide, and support, while Emily gradually opened herself up to the possibility that her life could be more than the struggles she faced daily. She began to understand that kindness, determination, and integrity could attract opportunities, and that her small gestures, like helping Liam, had far-reaching consequences. By the end of this period, Emily had begun to transform. Her confidence was growing, her vision becoming clearer, and her sense of self-worth stronger. She still worked at the cafe, cared for her family, and faced daily challenges. But now, she carried a new sense of hope. She realized that her life was not limited by circumstance, and that with support, guidance, and persistence, she could begin building the future she had always dreamed of. This phase of Emily's story was crucial. It marked the turning point where she began to recognize her own potential and the value of her actions, while also establishing a connection with someone who could help her unlock it. Mr. Harrison's quiet mentorship, combined with Emily's natural determination, was laying the foundation for a transformation that would soon reach beyond small gestures and everyday struggles, propelling her toward opportunities she had never imagined. In the weeks that followed, Emily continued to grow. She remained humble, hardworking, and kind, but now she carried a vision and a plan. Every decision she made, every small act of care she performed at the cafe began to feel like a step toward something greater. And through it all, the quiet presence of Mr. Harrison served as both guidance and affirmation, reinforcing that her potential was seen, valued, and ready to be nurtured. Emily had always dreamed of doing something bigger with her life, but her days had mostly been consumed by the cafe, her family, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. Yet now, after weeks of conversations and quiet encouragement from Mr. Harrison, she began to feel a shift inside herself. It wasn't just hope. It was a determination that she could actually shape her own future. She started thinking seriously about taking steps beyond the cafe, about turning her baking dreams into reality, and about finally giving herself a chance to grow. It started with small changes. Emily began organizing her recipes in the notebook Mr. Harrison had given her, writing down ideas for pastries, bread, and cakes that she had always imagined but never had the time or resources to create. She sketched layouts for a small bakery in her mind, imagining how she could make it cozy, welcoming, full of warmth, the kind of place where families could gather and people could feel cared for. Each night, she would lie in bed thinking about these plans, making mental lists of everything she would need and every challenge she would face. Meanwhile, Mr. Harrison continued his quiet mentorship. He provided guidance without pressure, asking about her plans, offering advice on managing finances. and connecting her with people who could help her learn the business side of running a small bakery. Emily was both excited and nervous. She had never imagined anyone taking her seriously in this way, and at first, she feared that she might fail or that it might all be too much for her to handle. But every time doubt crept in, she remembered the look on Liam's face when she had zipped up his jacket. And she realized that small acts of courage and care could lead to something greater. The first major step came when Mr. Harrison invited Emily to attend a workshop for young entrepreneurs he sponsored. Emily was hesitant at first. She worried about leaving her family, the cafe, and the routine she had depended on, but she eventually agreed. At the workshop, she was surrounded by people who had more experience, more resources, and more confidence than she had ever imagined. At first, she felt out of place, unsure if she belonged. But she quickly realized that her ideas, her creativity, and her determination were valued. People listened to her, asked questions, and offered encouragement. For the first time, she felt like she was part of something bigger, like her dreams were not just hers, but something that could be nurtured and shared with the world. Returning from the workshop, Emily felt invigorated. She began experimenting more boldly with her recipes, baking late into the night after her shifts at the cafe. She tested flavors, perfected techniques, and learned from every mistake. She even started taking small orders from neighbors and friends, gaining confidence in her ability to run a business on a small scale. Each success, no matter how minor, strengthened her resolve and made her more certain that she could achieve her dream, Mr. Harrison observed. Her growth with quiet pride. He had seen many talented people, but Emily's combination of resilience, humility, and creativity was rare. He realized that this was no longer just about helping someone out of kindness. This was about empowering someone whose potential had been overlooked, someone who could make a real difference if given the chance. He offered financial support to help Emily take the next step, but he did so thoughtfully, giving her control over how it would be used, so that she felt empowered rather than dependent. With the funds and guidance from Mr. Harrison, Emily took the boldest step yet. She rented a small space near the cafe to start her own bakery. It wasn't much, just a modest space with old counters and peeling paint, but it was hers. She painted the walls, set up her ovens, and filled the shelves with her creations. Every decision she made reflected her vision of warmth, community, and care. She wanted her bakery to be a place where people didn't just buy bread and pastries, but where they felt welcomed, valued, and cared for. The opening day arrived, and Emily was both nervous and excited. She had spent countless hours preparing, perfecting recipes, and making sure everything was ready. When the first customers arrived, she greeted them with the same kindness and attentiveness that had caught Mr. Harrison's eye weeks earlier. She watched nervously as they tasted her creations, unsure if they would like them. But one by one, smiles appeared on their faces, compliments were offered, and word of her bakery began to spread. Emily felt a surge of pride and joy. This was the tangible result of her hard work, determination, and the support she had received. Through all of this, Liam and his family continued to visit. Liam would often come to the bakery, excited to see new pastries and share his feedback. His presence reminded Emily of how it all began. The small act of zipping up a jacket had set off a chain of events that had led to this moment. Mr. Harrison would visit as well, quietly observing, never interfering, letting Emily take full ownership of her success. He saw her grow not just as a baker or business owner, but as a person, confident, capable, and ready to face whatever challenges came next. Emily's transformation was profound. She was no longer just a waitress struggling to get by. She was a small business owner with vision, skill, and confidence. She had learned to trust herself, to believe in her ideas, and to take risks in ways she had never imagined possible. Her life had shifted from mere survival to meaningful creation, and she felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known. Every challenge she faced along the way had strengthened her, teaching her resilience, patience, and the value of hard work combined with guidance and support. The success of her bakery also strengthened her relationship with her family. She was able to provide more stability for her mother and brother while still pursuing her dreams. The sense of empowerment she gained was contagious. Inspiring those around her to see possibilities they hadn't considered before, Emily realized that her kindness, patience, and integrity had been her greatest assets all along. Qualities that had opened doors far beyond what money or luck alone could achieve. By the end of this period, Emily had not only achieved a personal transformation, but had also created a ripple effect. Her bakery became a beloved local spot, a place where people felt welcome and cared for. She had turned a dream into reality, and in doing so, had proven to herself that even someone with limited resources could create meaningful change with determination, hard work, and the right support. The culmination of this journey was not just the opening of a bakery, but the realization that small acts of kindness and integrity could transform lives in ways that seemed impossible at first. Emily's life had changed, not overnight, but through a combination of opportunity, mentorship, and her own relentless effort. What began as a single act, helping a child with his jacket, had blossomed into a full-fledged story of growth, empowerment, and success. Emily now carried herself with quiet confidence. She had learned that her dreams were valid, that her efforts mattered, and that she could rise above the limitations that had once seemed insurmountable. Mr. Harrison continued to support her, not as a controlling figure, but as a mentor who recognized her potential and nurtured it. And through it all, Emily remembered the small beginnings, the smile on Liam's face, the spark of recognition in Mr. Harrison's eyes, and how they had led her to this remarkable transformation. Her journey was proof that change is possible when talent, character, and opportunity meet. It was a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of mentorship, and the courage to believe in oneself, even when the odds seem overwhelming. Emily had not only transformed her own life, but had also become an inspiration to others, showing that the right support and guidance could turn dreams into reality, one small step at a time. Emily's bakery had become more than just a place to buy bread and pastries. It had become a symbol of hope, hard work, and transformation. People came not only for her delicious baked goods, but also for the warmth and kindness she radiated. Every smile she received, every word of encouragement, reminded her how far she had come from the small cafe where she had once stood, juggling trays and worrying about bills. Her life had changed, but she remained humble and grounded, remembering the small beginnings that had led her. To this point, the morning was crisp and bright when the Harrison family walked into the bakery. Liam's wheelchair rolled smoothly over the wooden floor. His small hand gripped Emily's as he giggled at the sight of fresh pastries displayed in neat rows. Emily bent down to his level, her smile warm, just as it had been months ago when she had helped him zip up his jacket. "Good morning, Liam. Did you sleep well?" she asked. His eyes sparkled as he nodded, happy to see her. The moment felt like a gentle reminder of how one small act of care could ripple outward and change so many lives. Mr. Harrison followed behind his son, his expression quiet but full of pride. He had watched Emily's journey unfold with admiration, seeing how she had grown into a confident, capable business owner. He remembered the day he had first noticed her in the cafe, kneeling beside his son, and marveled at how that single moment had revealed her extraordinary character. It was a reminder that true greatness is often found in kindness, humility, and integrity. Qualities that cannot be bought or learned overnight. Emily welcomed them warmly, offering Liam his favorite pastries and engaging him in lighthearted conversation. She had learned that business success wasn't just about selling products. It was about creating an environment where people felt seen, cared for, and valued. Watching Liam laugh and interact freely, Emily felt a wave of gratitude. She realized that her journey had come full circle. The boy she had once helped in a fleeting moment had been the catalyst for a series of events that ultimately allowed her to flourish. The bakery had grown steadily. Emily had hired a few staff members, all of whom she trained with patience and care, emphasizing not just skills, but also the importance of treating customers with respect and warmth. She had become a mentor herself, guiding others as Mr. Harrison had guided her. The bakery's reputation spread through the neighborhood, drawing people from nearby towns who wanted to experience the welcoming atmosphere and taste her carefully crafted pastries. Emily's confidence and vision had created a place that felt like home to everyone who walked through its doors. Yet amidst the growing success, Emily never forgot her family. She made sure her mother received proper medical care. Her younger brother had access to educational opportunities, and that they all shared moments of joy together. For the first time, she could provide stability and comfort, stark contrast to the years of financial worry and constant stress. Her achievements were not just personal, they were transformative for the people she loved most. One afternoon, as she was arranging freshly baked bread on the counter, Mr. Harrison approached her with a small envelope. She looked up, surprised, and he smiled gently. "Emily," he said, "I wanted to give you something as a token of recognition for your hard work and determination." Inside was a note expressing his admiration for her perseverance, character, and the incredible journey she had undertaken. It was more than money or formal acknowledgement. It was a heartfelt affirmation that someone had seen her true worth and believed in her potential. Emily felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness and sincerity behind the gesture. The experience had changed her perception of opportunity and support. She understood now that mentorship, guidance, and genuine belief in someone's abilities could create transformative results. What had started as a small act of kindness, helping Liam zip up his jacket, had snowballed into an entire journey of personal growth, acute empowerment, and achievement. Emily's story was proof that life could shift in unexpected ways when compassion, integrity, and perseverance intersected with opportunity, as weeks turned into months. Emily continued to expand her bakery's offerings. She experimented with seasonal pastries, organized community events, and hosted baking workshops for children and aspiring bakers. Her space became a hub of creativity and warmth, a place where people not only came for delicious food but also felt inspired to pursue their own dreams. Emily had become a role model, not just for her employees or customers, but for everyone who believed that hard work and kindness could lead to meaningful change. The bond between Emily and the Harrison family deepened naturally over time. Liam would visit regularly, sharing stories about his school day, drawing pictures for Emily, and enjoying treats she made with care. Mr. Harrison's quiet presence remained a source of support and encouragement. But he let Emily shine as the protagonist of her own story. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and trust, reflecting the positive impact that genuine mentorship could have when it allowed the mentee to take ownership of their success. Emily also took moments to reflect on her journey. She remembered the countless days when she had felt invisible, overworked, and uncertain of her future. She remembered the nights she had stayed up perfecting recipes, the worry about money, and the fear that her dreams would remain out of reach. And she remembered the small act of helping a child with his jacket, unaware at the time that it would set in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. That memory served as a reminder of the power of compassion, patience, and integrity, and of how small gestures can have a lasting impact. Her life had transformed not only materially, but emotionally and spiritually. Emily had developed a deep sense of self-worth, realizing that her dreams and efforts were valid and valuable. She had gained confidence in her abilities, trust in the process of growth, and the understanding that perseverance could overcome obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. She had also learned the importance of giving back, mentoring others, and using her own experiences to uplift those around her. One evening, after closing the bakery, Emily sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She thought about how far she had come from the waitress juggling tables to the successful bakery owner whose life had been forever changed by small acts of kindness and guidance. A sense of peace and accomplishment washed over her. She realized that success was not just about wealth or recognition, it was about creating positive change, nurturing relationships, and using one's gifts to make the world a better place. The story concluded with a heartwarming scene that captured the essence of Emily's journey. Liam wheeled himself to the front of the bakery, his face lighting up with excitement as he greeted her. Mr. Harrison stood behind him, smiling quietly, his pride and respect for Emily evident. She knelt to greet Liam, helping him with a small jacket she had kept for him, just as she had months ago. The act was simple, yet symbolic, a full-circle moment that reminded everyone present of the journey the kindness, and the growth that had led to this point. Emily had not only changed her own life, but it also created a ripple effect, touching the lives of her family, employees, customers, and community. She had proven that with determination, integrity, and the right support, dreams could be realized and lives could be transformed in ways previously unimaginable. Her story was one of empowerment, resilience, and the enduring impact of compassion, a true testament to the power of human connection and the extraordinary results that can emerge from even the smallest gestures of kindness. In the end, Emily stood in her bakery, surrounded by the warmth of her creations, the smiles of her customers, and the quiet support of a mentor who had believed in her from the start. She understood that life's challenges were not the end, but rather the beginning of opportunities waiting to be embraced. And in that moment, she knew that her journey full of struggle, growth, and triumph was only the beginning of a lifetime of meaningful achievements and acts of kindness, touching lives one small gesture at a time.